just dawned on me that you ain't coming back. I've lost my chance to see us find our way back. And in the end, amidst these trying times, I'll always try to find you. I'll allow you to find the truth that you hold back. So stay with me. You know that I'll follow. I can't breathe. Together we'll fall apart. Stay here right in my arms, and we'll start again. So stay. Dramatically talk to me, and it's so funny, you're all I wanted, and I can't talk, want you out of my life, so say none. I'll wait for days if you ain't one, I'll just say none. So stay with me, you know that I'll follow. I can't breathe, together we'll fall apart. Stay here right in my arms, we'll start again. So stay with me. Together we'll fall apart. Together we'll fall apart. Together we'll fall apart. Stay here right in my arms, and we'll start again. So stay with me. Together we'll fall apart.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Warning: the following video contains flashing imagery that may cause discomfort and/or seizures for those with photosensitive epilepsy. Viewer discretion is advised.
Tell me somebody how long he will be on my mind. You will be on my mind.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chaz Draycott Media and welcome to round 5 of Season 2 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We're here at the legendary Circuit de Spa Francorchamps and it's going to be one hell of a night of racing, I can guarantee you that. My name is Chaz Draycott and I'm delighted to have alongside me once again in the commentary box Ed May. Ed, we've been here before, but we were both saying last time, we were both saying just a moment ago that it can't have been that memorable a race really because neither of us can fully remember what happened.
No, yeah, it's on. I can't quite recall what happened. I think I remember Simon Povey coming through the eventual winner, and I think I came home in second place. And it was just one of those ones where it was just a little bit too fast, really. And it was one where you can sort of split out into your own pack, which is very unlike Spa, because with those long straights at the start of the lap and then at the end, it can bring the field a lot closer together with the slipstream. It means that they can't really break apart from one another. So hopefully we see a lot more of a closer race, a lot more of a memorable race as well here tonight. One that we're hoping for a night to remember will be Callum Brandt after, well, let's say last round to forget at Silverstone, where he didn't quite seem to capture that same amount of pace and form that we've been expecting from a very exciting driver who's making his first season in SRM.
It's very true.
And tell you what, we've got a bit of housekeeping to do as well, because we've got to run through, Chaz, and I know you've got it ready, these standings from last time out, and of course as well from the overall championship standings.
Yes, indeed. Lewis Ward looking very tidy at the top of the order. He's going to be really happy with a, what would that be, 15-point gap. Now, you mentioned a moment ago that the slipstreaming around here keeps everybody all close together and it keeps it a nice tight fight through the field. Well, especially here in the championship itself, the points scoring is very, very close. We did amend the point system for this season, and as you can tell, it is very, very tight indeed. That 15-point gap at the top, though, for Lewis, well, that comes as a number of other drivers just below him have missed 1 or 2 rounds, but still scored very highly when they have been on the grid. Simon Povey, of course, taking a lovely victory last time out at Silverstone. A bit of strategy came into play as well, but of course that little moment for Lewis with the lapped traffic unfortunately put pay to his chase near the end. But Simon Povey's in 3rd, Callum Brandt is 2nd, Rob Sharp remains in 4th. Mike Horder is definitely one to watch. He has been really enjoyable to keep an eye on in the few races that he's done so far this season, and I think definitely for the rest of the season he's one that we've got to have our eye on for sure, isn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's been some really good drives from him as well. Nice, sensible, clean drives, which are what score you the points mostly around here. Maybe what we'll see tonight, because last time out as well, Silverstone was a little bit chaotic, and that cool head of Mike's really did come through to bag him some great points and a great finish.
It really did. And this man has shown us a number of times that he can secure a strong finish as well. Callum is one of those drivers that really comes on strong at the end of the race and is always exciting. He's had so many strategies work his way, and that car just seems good in the long run, you know, compared to the McLaren. We did hint earlier in the season, especially in the very first round at Road Atlanta, that the McLaren might not be good over a long run because it's quicker in the short term. Callum here just practicing his pit entrance. We're on the Grand Prix pit lane for this evening's racing, so they go all the way down here and then they will make their way into this pit lane at the top of the hill before La Source, and they will not be using the pit lane that goes all the way down the hill. We'll still be able to keep our eye on them when they're in the pits, which is good. We'll be able to keep our eye on Simon Povey as well. 3rd in the championship, 3rd in the practice session at the moment. Dan McCauley and his teammate Lewis Ward working together now. And Dan, after a podium last time out, a double podium for Apex, they're both going to be very confident now that they can get strong points this evening and go back to the top of the team's championship, aren't they?
Absolutely. It's all about trying to get those points as you can. And I mean, Lewis Ward is going to be hoping for maybe to do one better than he did last time at Silverstone. He was still really, really quick and led, I think, the majority of the race, but when push came to shove, the strategy worked in favour of Simon. That early pit stop from Lewis put him in traffic and put him, most importantly, behind Simon's teammate Gary Tall, who put in a Checo-like defence, it's fair to say. Really held him off. Didn't do anything dirty, but just slowed up Lewis Ward a little bit too much for him to be in any sort of contention. And then a little instant with a back marker for Lewis really just put his race hopes of a victory to bed, but he still came through for a brilliant 2nd place and basically made sure that any losses made in the championship were as small as possible, and still commands a decent but not sizable championship lead coming into this, the 5th round of 10.
It's good to see a few drivers back on the grid as well that we didn't have in the previous race meeting. It's good to see Brian Crowell's back with us. He is down there in the pit lane in the Track Velocity Racing Mercedes, the purple machine. You can just see the two McLarens going past on the right-hand side of shot. We also have John Roberts with us again this evening in the Boosted Motorsport Aston Martin, under the radar with his digital Ukrainian camouflage, sliding the rear end around quite a bit as well. Just see the top 10 is very closely contested at the moment, and we've got Mike Horder right amongst it as well. Matthias Tem outside of the top 10 right now, or the top 10 as you could say, but he's had a frustrating season so far, it's safe to say. He's still been enjoying the racing, hasn't he, Ed? But he's just not had the results. You know, he's had a potential impeding in qualifying, he's had a spin here and contact there, and Silverstone wasn't really his race either, and some drivers were spoken to about the driving standards at the start of the race at Silverstone, but there were no major penalties given out. It just seems, unfortunately, like Matthias is the one that seems to be losing out a bit.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He showed great pace in the very first round of the championship, where I believe did he put it on the front or did he put it on pole position? I can't quite remember.
On the grid,
he was certainly way up there at the start of the season, but unfortunately it's basically just been downhill from there, and it's, like you say, just a count of maybe not quite getting the luck his way. And he was just chatting to me a little bit before we went live, letting me know a little bit about his preparation going into the round at the halfway point of the championship, and unfortunately he hasn't been able to really set too many practice laps. He's got a bit of a sore ankle. Not know if he twisted it or something. He didn't give a full rundown of how the injury happened. He's just got a bit of a sore ankle at the moment, and that meant that he hasn't been able to put a practice lap in at all, really, and that could have a big effect on a circuit like Spa, where there's so many different corners that you need to get absolutely nailed down to have a quick lap, because it's all about the flow state through that middle sector.
Yeah, it really is, and it's a sector that's been updated in the last year or so as well. Of course, what was once No Name and then Jackie X Bend is now Speaker's Corner. There's a commentary box down there at that left-hander these days, and it's been extended. There's a shorter version of that corner for motorbikes, and then, of course, for the cars, you have the long, sweeping version of said corner. As right now, we have Paul Goffin on our screens in the very pretty SRM Racing Team A McLaren, the car which I painted at the start of the season. And I think it looks alright. To be fair, it's not too different from the previous one. It's got this nice overlapping design on it, a lovely fade for the Dayglow yellow across the top of it. And Paul and his teammate Andy, the boss man, both running it in very tasty fashion. Now I'm intrigued here because looking at Paul's car, Paul's got white wheels on that. Now, I'm going to explain this badly, but if you look here at Gary Tall's car, he has the black wheels on his McLaren. Now, where the numbers are stamped on that car, you see the white number 207 all over it, and down the side on the number boards, which are near the back end of the car. You can only get those numbers in those places when you choose a livery underneath this that is the standard FAF livery that used to race the McLaren. And that always gives it black wheels, which you cannot paint. But somehow Paul Goffin's managed to get those numbers and have white wheels. So I'm going to have to ask him about that. Still, practice is over. I need to stop being nerdy about paints and stuff. Povey, Brandt and McCauley, your top three. Qualifying coming up now, Ed. What can we expect to see here?
Oh, just bedlam. So many cars are going to be piling to get out of track as soon as possible. There's not a lot of time in the session, of course, so drivers need to, well, make haste while they can. Look at them all piling out of their pit boxes and making their way into the very tight right-hander at the source. Even tighter, of course, because you are right on the inside with walls either side. It means that it's going to be very tricky, of course, for all these cars coming out at once to not basically pile into one another. Brilliant sight, isn't it? Look at them all going out on track, and it's all about getting that position as well, because if you get behind a slower car in that infield, not the infield, it's not an oval, I've been doing too many practice laps at Daytona into that middle sector, you're going to be so just stuck. You can't get around them at all, and it's going to be so tricky for drivers that haven't got the space to properly go through. I mean, look at this. There's just in front of Philip Hopley, there's going to be no space whatsoever. There
really isn't. There's a lot of cars out on track right now, and even at a place like Spa, it can get cramped very quickly. You're going to see teams not really sticking together straight away here. The drivers are just going to crack on and get whatever laps in that they can, and then maybe spend the rest of the time working together. Hello everybody in the chat, whether you be on YouTube, Twitch or Facebook. Good to see you all with us again this evening. Jakub Szmanski, hello my friend, hope you're well. Sean Gardner, James Holman in there, and Jacob Money as well. Good to see you all. Jakub says, I've just noticed you're already at 1,050 subscribers. Going up quickly it seems. Yes, I think as of today it's 1,056, and I only hit 1,000 I think 4 days ago or 5 days ago. It's pretty bonkers to be honest with you, but the growth seems to be natural and consistent, so I'm happy with that, and hopefully may it continue. But right now we want this session to continue, and we want to get those tasty times on the board and see what people can do. And another thing, Ed, for these drivers to think about around here now is that they cannot waste a single moment because of how long a lap is around here in a GT4 car. They're not going to get many in at all.
No, exactly. And of course, the track limits around here, well, they are infamous in iRacing because of how strict they can be. So any little mistakes, any little missteps, and running slightly wide or maybe cutting a corner a little bit too much will completely invalidate a lap time and basically mean that, well, 2.5 minutes of your life have been completely wasted because it's not going to count for anything. So that's something that all the drivers need to be really careful about, is those all-important track limits. And we go with Rob Sullivan just so you can see how tightly packed they all are together coming into Blanchimont.
Yeah, that's Mark Johnson, Gary
Quite
Toll,
flat
and Brian
out in
Krause,
these cars. Yeah, so many cars up in front, and he's going to be right in the thick of things. That is Gary Toll, like you can see, just coming into the bus stop now.
Mark Johnson's got out of the way.
Time for him. Yeah, he doesn't want any part of that, and to be fair, can't blame him for it. Never mind, he's right in the way now of, who is that?
Brian
Brian Crowles, isn't it? Yeah, in towards last source. He's going to go for a little move up the inside as Brian, so they're basically doing race overtakes in the qualifying session. They don't want to be caught up with each other whatsoever. Gary Toll is very fortunate to be far and away clear of all of this. This could be a very important lap for Gary to get himself up into the top 10, I reckon. Maybe in the top 5 potentially, judging on his pace last time out and the laps he was doing in qualifying. It could be doable for him. But then again, this is a circuit that some drivers absolutely love and others loathe, to be honest. It's one that's so difficult, technical, and if you're quick around here, you love it. If you're slow around here, you hate it. And I'm sad to say, I'm slow. I don't enjoy this track too much to drive, but to watch, it is an absolute treat.
Well, to be honest with you, it's a circuit that, if I'm honest, I never think, oh, we've got to do Spa, but I know that the racing's always good around here, and I seem to go quite well at Spa, even though it's never my first choice for anything, to be honest with you. So I'm intrigued to see what sort of times these guys get, because I've had some hardware turn up this week that I might actually be getting in the rig and doing some testing with, so I may be able to try and put some comparison laps on the board and see where I may fare in this field if I was to give up commentating and get driving. But let's face it, there's a reason I'm a commentator. And now
should we do a side by side? I do a lap, you do a lap, put them side by side, and
oh, you'd absolutely spank me. Oh, Gary Toll was off the road for a moment there. We'll look back at that in a minute because I want to keep an eye on Mike Horder crossing the line. We've got purple sectors coming in from Simon Povey, 2 from Callum Brandt, another one from Simon Povey, and then 1 from Lewis Ward. So that's why you don't see any purple.
Well.
There was, but he's been beaten, I'm afraid. I think that was the... Actually, no, Callum Brandt's just done another in Sector 4. So Callum's on a mission. Across the line go the first few. Mike Horder goes fastest. Gets dethroned by Christopher Smith in the BMW. Paul Goffin's gone 3rd fastest. Only 0.4 of a second between them. Stuart Clark across the line as well. He goes 4th fastest now behind them. Ben Gregory's in a bit of a train of cars as Callum Brandt goes 6/10 clear of everybody at the very top. Brilliant lap from him. That puts the 2 RD SimSport cars 1st and 2nd. Then it's Mike Horder for boosted SimSport. Paul Goffin's 4th. Ben Gregory 5th. And you can see now that some of them may be backing off in the early stages of this following lap to get a bit more room. Brian Crowles has gone 3rd fastest. Good return for Brian back in the series again. Where is Simon Povey? Well, he's actually just coming through Campus and then Stavilo. He's all on his own here, but he's done 2 purple sectors in sectors 1 and 3.
Super nice line there through Campus. Just kissing the curb. You don't really want to hit the raised portion of that. If you can help it, unsettles the car and means that you can't get the power down nice and early through Campus and then flat out through Stavolo. Tip the wheels out onto the grass, basically just widening out the corner as much as possible there to try and take it flat out, which it looked to be there from Simon, to be honest. And we're going to see now very wide on the way in, turn in the last possible moment to get that like apex and really open out the left-hander. Nice exit as well. Car looked really compliant with him, so we'll see what it'll be as he crosses the line. Looks to be good enough for pole position, but will it be? Yes, it will. By almost 0.4 of a second. That is a real benchmark time, and by far the fastest time we've seen so far this evening. Just to put a reference point on it, that time's done by Callum Brandt, Dan McCauley, Lewis Ward. They were roughly in the 27.8. So from that lap time from Simon Povey, completely blows them out of the water.
Fantastic time by Simon. Dan McCauley did well and went pole as well for just a moment while Simon was coming through the last chicane. Lewis Ward was about half a second off him, but now that has been thrown into the water, like you say. We've got Callum Brandt off the road apparently, but he's back on. We've got still a good 10 or 11 cars that haven't put in a valid lap time yet. Mike Horder really pushing around Blanchemont, but still plenty of time left in the session. 7 3/4 minutes. And the session doesn't immediately stop as soon as it hits 0. The drivers do get time to complete the lap that they are currently on. This looks really lively by Horder. He's a bit wide out the final corner. I'm not sure if that will still count. He's got Paul Goffin behind him. And Horder goes 5th fastest. Great time from him. Does Paul Goffin improve? He does not. Christopher Smith does not improve either. Gary Tall is going to be on his first valid lap. He goes across the line. We've had a purple sector from Callum Brandt as well. Gary Tall does not put in a valid time. Neither does Matthias Tem. Oh, no, he does actually. There's a bit of a delay on it coming through, but he goes 8th fastest. And that shows you the pace around here, though, Ed, because he had a purple sector in the middle of the lap and still was outside of the top 5 positions.
Yeah, it shows that there's a lot of time, I think, still to be found out there by quite a few of the drivers as well. At 29.14 there from Matthias Tem. To put that into perspective, a majority of the field, around about 15 or so cars, managed to dip below the 2-minute 29 barrier. They were in the 2-minute 28. So I think a lot more drivers can find a lot more time. But as it stands, it's probably just due to the congested nature of the circuit. They're not able to put those laps in, and they need to do so sooner rather than later, because like you can see, there's only 6.5 minutes to go in the session. Look up the inside by Rob Sharp. I think that was more the 222. That is one of the... That was one of the Toto's Lemmings. That was Heinz Meyer. Just getting out of the way, not wanting any part of that. The 111 now of Andy Marston. You say the lovely SRM liveried car. Coming up to the line. What will it be for Mr. SRM? 21st place, he stays, but does improve his time. Not far off, actually. Heinz Meyer just up the road.
Just looking at
see where Simon Povey is, because I think he's put in another... No, he's not coming to the pits, actually. He's on an outlap.
Yeah, he was sat on pit exit for a little bit, waiting for cars to go by, and then he's only just cracked on with his laps once again, so still waiting to see whether he can make another improvement, but he's gone in to get fresh rubber. Ryan Penny was letting us know that, unfortunately, the Ken Block tribute that he's got on the bonnet of the car didn't show up very well last week on the broadcast. You can see he's got the skull and crossbones there, Ken's old logo on the front of his Mercedes, and he's wearing that as a tribute to the wonderful Ken Block, who he very unfortunately lost last week. Seems amazing, unbelievably quickly how that week has just flown by, actually, to be honest, Ed. I can't quite believe it, really. But it is a massive shame and a massive loss, but it's nice to see that the drivers still carry those tributes with pride.
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously good to see that maybe that might be also maybe a longer term fixture on the cars. It would be lovely to see, of course. Ben Gregory now coming through to round out a lap and start a new one. 4 minutes and 40 seconds to go as he breaks the timing beam. Is there any improvement from Ben Gregory coming through? It doesn't appear to be. Actually, no, he does improve, but I don't think he improves on his position. 29.19 again for Ben Gregory. And now I think Simon should be coming towards the end of his outlap, and he's going to be a real driver to watch coming onto a flyer to see if he can cement this pole position. Look at the wide line he takes now, coming through, completely misses the apex. He wants to open up the corner to get on the throttle as early as possible. He carries much speed down this straight in towards La Source.
Yeah, he's really getting as much of a run as he can. You can't see a massive amount from inside the McLaren. Brakes as late as he dares, hugs that inside wall, gets on the power early, ready to dance it off the exit. You can tell he knows exactly where the track limits are here because he's still getting 2 wheels off the road, but not enough to trigger an incident point as you get here on iRacing. All the way down towards Rouge and Radion. You can't even see the top of the hill when he dives down to the bottom. Uses all the curb on the left and on the right as well. And now he's going to change up into 6th gear in the McLaren at 233 kilometers an hour. Seems like he delayed that for a while, to be fair. And now onto the brakes into Les Comèdes.
Yeah, just really hope the inside there, get your wheels onto both those upper edges of the curb, and then you can shift up into 4th and go through the corner. Does it basically as soon as the car drops down off the apex, gets a nice burst of speed coming in towards Bruxelles. Hug it nice and tight as well, down to 2nd gear, quickly up into 3rd. That little extra bit of grunt coming out of the corner in 2nd helps you out so much. Keep it in 3rd, coast it through No Name. Then here's a very tricky corner, Bouon or Double Gauche, as the Belgians call it. There's a little bit of a marker on the right hand side. You use that orange point on the catch fence, coast it in down to 4th gear, and then keep it tight. Don't put too much steering lock in because it scrubs a lot of speed as you go flat out now in towards the Fagny chicane. Again, wheels, if you can, onto that right-hand curb. Simon's just a little bit wide of the mark, but carries a lot of speed through the corner, which negates any sort of time loss potentially. And now in towards Campus. Chuck it in, use the changing down of the gears to rotate it beautifully onto the power, now flat out from here to the bus stop. Again, minimal steering inputs, run from one side of the circuit to the other, just so you're not scrubbing any speed, and hug tight, of course, to the white lines to have the shortest run possible. Looks like a sort of scrappy lap, to be honest, from Simon. Flat out, he's thrown slightly off by hitting the curb. If you want to avoid it, just get into almost like a divot in the road that hooks the car through. Hard onto the brakes now for the bus stop. Again, he's just a little bit too late, misses the apex and comes into the pits to Simon.
Yeah, he decides to bin that one. Mark Johnson did a purple sector 3 on his fastest lap. He's gone up to 14th position, but he had a purple sector on that one. Amazing stuff by Mark. Lewis Ward is currently in 4th with his teammate Dan McCauley just ahead. The 2 Apex Racing Academy McLarens not just together on track, but also together on current grid position. And, well, Dan McCauley has gone way straight on at the last corner, maybe giving Lewis some slipstreaming, getting out of his way.
Potentially, but that is going to completely ruin Dan's next attempt at a lap time because he's going to have a slowdown that he won't be able to clear in time to go around for another lap time. So it will basically be Lewis Ward and Callum Brandt left to challenge Simon Povey for pole position. Simon's not going to be coming out anytime soon. He won't be able to go through an outlap in 1 minute. Won't be able to do that in any car, I don't think, to be fair. A 1 minute lap time around Spa. It's, I think, the longest lap time of the calendar here in the SRM GT4 Challenge. And it's a long time for the drivers to maybe find some time, but also make a few mistakes and lose it.
It's nice to know that we've got 29 of the 30 drivers that are currently signed up for the championship on the grid tonight, and all 29 of them have valid lap times on the board, which is great to see. So thank you to all the drivers for their continued participation and support for the series. It's lovely to have you all, and we hope that any of you watching the broadcast back certainly do enjoy it. We do try and give everybody as much coverage as we can over the course of the night. We like to spread out our attention over the course of the field and not just look at the race leaders. And it's nice to know that we've always got battles to look at. And to be honest, Ed, I think we've been spoilt for choice so far this season because we've had a few races where people have had an issue early on and then had a comeback drive through the pack. And, well, I think it's been belting to watch so far.
Yeah, it has. I mean, we've just got to look at that BMW to know about comeback drives. There have been some brilliant performances from Christopher Smith so far this season, but he's starting high up the grid in 7th place. We'll hope to be staying there by the end of the first few corners, which hasn't necessarily been the case for the very unfortunate RD Simsport driver. Matthias Tem, Fury Simsport, currently out on a lap. He's 6th fastest, which is a big improvement from what we've been seeing in the past. As I say that, he's just now peeled off into the pits, but that's a good starting mark for Matthias. In behind Jacob Money for what is, I can't remember the name of their team now. I've not got the updated project file, but I think it's the Sapphire Simsport and Oribus Racing collab.
Yes, Orris Sapphire Simsport is the team name, and they are definitely a strong one to watch. But 5th and 11th on the grid for them is well, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just an indicator of how high the level is this season. I mean, we've got a good, I'd say, I mean, no disrespect to Gary because he's in 16th place right now, but I'd say there's a good 15 drivers that could all comfortably be in the top 10, and I wouldn't see it as an irregular sort of position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely a strong contingent of, I think, championship contenders for this season as well. There are so many quick drivers that have all got that pace to win races and win championships. And like you say, we have been absolutely spoilt here in this second season of the SRM GT4 Challenge. It all comes across the line. The last driver to do so in this qualifying session does not improve, comes off into the pits. With that, Chaz, that brings qualifying here from the 5th round, the halfway point of the season now, to a close.
It certainly does, and a little bit of silence over the circuit now. The virtual crowds still cheering. I'm intrigued to see if iRacing do a rescan of Spa. Now they've got the new Rouge and Radion section, which is a much different corner to how it used to be. And to be honest, while it is a legendary piece of circuit, I agree with the fact that it has been changed. You know, it needed to be done for safety. There wasn't much they could do in terms of moving barriers that much and other scenery around it, let's say. So to tighten it up and just have it as a slower chicane, I think is the only option. And you know, we've had a good long time with the previous iteration that we're running tonight, and its legendary status will always remain. That's a gorgeous shot there down the hill, though, from Speaker's Corner. You can see the entrance to the bus stop and the start-finish straight and La Source, and then even just the entrance to Eau Rouge and Radion. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous view. But you can see now, though, there is not a massive amount going on at all. We're just waiting for the session to tick over, as it should do in just a moment's time. It's just that with
beautiful shots, aren't they, around the circuit? You don't get a sense of how steep it is, though, do you, in the sim until you're actually there in person?
Well, it's a circuit I'm yet to visit, unfortunately, but I really do hope to head out there at some point, whether it be for commentary or whether it just be as a spectator to the Spa 24 hours or something like that. I just really want to visit Spa. I've heard so many good things about it, and you never know, may end up out there one day, and we'll have to see. But you're right, though, Ed. Everybody does say that when you go there and you see just how steep Eau Rouge is, it's just terrifying. So certainly something I need to witness firsthand.
Absolutely. I mean, you've been to other circuits that have plenty of elevation, of course. The Red Bull Ring in Austria, I mean, that is something that in the sim you don't necessarily think about. But the run basically from even the final cornering towards turn 1 is surprisingly steep.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, there's a moment where you can stand in the upper paddock at the Red Bull Ring and you can be at the very bottom of it and you can look in the direction of turn 3 and you can see it above the roof of the trucks. It's remarkably steep. Simon Povey takes pole position then. He gets another championship point. Callum Brandt alongside him on the front row. Then it's an Apex Racing Academy row 2. Jacob Money and Matthias Tem make up row 3. Then we have Christopher Smith and Stuart Clark on row 4. The BMW is going well there. Mike Horder in 9th, with Brian Crowles rounding out the top 10. Rob Sharp and John Barnes make up the 6th row of the grid. Then we have Paul Goffin and Ben Gregory in 14th. He's surely going to move forward from there. Mark Johnson for Legends Racing is 15th alongside Gary Tall, another driver that's definitely due to move forward. Fausto Pinto lines up alongside Philip Hopley on the 9th row of the grid. We then have John Roberts and Paul Gosling rounding out the top 20, followed by Rob Sutherland and John Tusting in 22nd. Ralph Mayer and Drew Fletcher line up on the 12th row of the grid, ahead of Heinz Mayer and Ryan Penny. Kim Such and Andrew Marston make up a very bright 9th, no, not 9th, sorry, that's row... Why can't I figure out what row that is? That's row 14. Flipping heck, Chaz. Peter Brill line up in 29th at the back of the grid. And we're just about getting ready to go now, Ed. And this is going to be... I think this is going to be probably one of the races of the season, to be honest. It's a track that every driver will know. And it's a track that every driver will have supreme confidence at. What do you reckon?
I think a lot of it hinges on this first lap. I mean, the run down to La Source can be fraught with dangers. And the same going up through Eau Rouge and Radion for the first time with colder than expected tyres could be a recipe for disaster, but fingers crossed everyone will get through unscathed and we'll be in for a real treat here as the 5th round of the SRM GT4 Challenge is just moments away from getting started.
Through the bus stop chicane they go. Simon Povey really opens up the line. He's going to wait, and then he's going to get on the throttle, and round 5 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge from Spa Francorchamps is underway. Looks a bit sedate from this camera angle, but it's a nice start for Dan McCauley. He's got down the inside of Callum Brandt already and makes it through into second position. The frame rate is going to die a death for just a moment, so please do bear with it. There's a move down the inside there on Paul Goffin by Ben Gregory. Mark Johnson running out wide around the outside of John Barnes. Looks like Matthias Thames had drama somewhere and maybe been off the road in the final chicane. Might have been a bit of a check-up at the back of the pack. But at the front, it's Simon Povey leading through Eau Rouge and Radion. Going to keep our eye on what everyone's doing in the mid-pack and see if there's any spinners, because we both know, Ed, that they very easily can be. All looks all right and tidy.
Seems to be fine. Say Ben Gregory making up 2 positions from the start of the race. Brian Crowell's going for a move as well in towards Les Comps. Mercedes round the outside of Mike Horton, not quite able to go for it. The smart thing to do is just back out of it. No sense going too wide on cool tyres at the start of the race. That does appear to be someone going side by side. I think that is with Philip Hopley and Paul Gosling.
Yeah, Paul in the...
as well in that. Oops, sorry.
No, it's all right. But I was going to say Paul in the World War II theme. Actually, sorry, it was John Tusting in the boosted motorsport machine with the camouflage on it. Just ahead, it was actually Paul Gosling having a go at stablemate John Roberts, boosted motorsport and boosted motorsport B. Callum Brandt is putting Dan McCauley under pressure for second place, and this is perfect for Simon Povey because he's got Lewis Ward a couple of positions back. He's got a fight going on behind him, and then more fights going on behind that. So everybody is distracting each other from chasing him down.
A very aggressive little look up the inside from Matthias Thames, and you could see that Jake Money was having absolutely none of it, closing the door in towards the French chicane, and now they need to work together here because they don't want to see that battle for the lead stripped away from them. They have good pace, they showed it in qualifying, but they can't afford to get sort of too focused on battling one another because they will just allow cars ahead to streak away. And I think actually Callum Brandt got that message as well, was going to maybe look to go side by side with the McLaren of Dan McCauley, but then backed out of it rather sensibly. Now it's down to Dan essentially to do all of these guys a huge favour, and that is to keep up Simon Povey, which as soon as those words leave your mouth you think, oh god, that's almost an impossible task, but it's one that Dan will certainly have to do his best to achieve, because at the moment Simon Povey has a 1 second lead after lap 1.
Yeah, he's going to be a very happy boy right now, is Simon. Really solid first lap. Great start from everybody as well, I have to say. After last week it was really tidy, just this one moment on that first lap, and that was for Ralph Mayer. Just skims along the barrier in his Mercedes and has to wait before he gets it moving again. I think Philip Hopley's lost a position or two. Actually, John Tusting and Rob Sutherland side by side in the Aston Martins. Flashing the lights is Rob Sutherland. As they go down towards Eau Rouge, it's Rob on the inside. That becomes the outside. Oh, running a little bit wide there was John Tusting, but nothing too untoward really. We need to go back up to the front though, because Jacob Money, he's under attack from Matthias Thames here. Matthias wants to get a move on and go forward, and both of these drivers are usuals, regulars within the sort of top 10, top 5, and they know that they should be up there. Same with Gary Tall as well. After his previous performance, he wants to go forwards.
Yeah, I have to say though, really impressed with Jacob Money and that Porsche for being as high up the field as it is. I mean, it's not a circuit that I would imagine favours the Porsche whatsoever. I'd say it was already Aston actually. It felt a little bit sluggish when I was doing a few practice laps. It doesn't seem to be a car that's at home around here, but the pair of them doing brilliantly to get those cars as high up the grid as they are at the moment. Jacob Money, the highest positioned Porsche. Matthias Thames, highest positioned Aston Martin. I'm very pleased with that, but of course they want a little bit more than just being the highest positioned manufacturer or car of their, or driver of their manufacturer in this race. Get your words out, Ed. We see them go side by side yet again. These two are just inseparable. It's a great battle. We've seen these two fight more than a few times this season. Again, around the outside through Campus. Should help out Matthias just get on the throttle that little bit earlier, but then through Stavolo he might need to be careful of track limits on the exit. Crystal Smith is going to take huge advantage of this, and now I think that's Matthias thrown slightly offline. They could be going side by side, you know, in towards Blanchimont, which is a scary thing to think about, but they managed to sort themselves out just before then. Now the pressure's going to be really mounting on Jacob Money as they come in towards the bus stop. Matthias doesn't really want to make a move here. wants to stay behind, get all of that slipstream, and try and make the
Oh,
move
no.
in towards campus. But he gets attacked from behind. They were so close, and it was bound to happen with the whole pack bunching up. The Constantina effect under braking, and that has taken out Matthias, unfortunately.
Yeah, Matthias's bad luck continues, and he gets a little tap from Christopher Smith just behind him. You could see the BMW really nosedived on the brakes. It wasn't for a lack of trying. Like you say, though, a bit of slipstreaming just drags them all together, and you have to brake that little bit earlier. Seems like Chris just didn't in that scenario, unfortunately. Philip Hopley's having a bit of a... Sorry, go on.
I don't know if he got a little bit tight from behind, because there were so many cars close as well as they got into braking behind Christopher Smith as well. They looked so close. There wasn't really any room for them to go. As soon as Matthias was braking, he can go any further in front of the incident. It's tricky to imagine. This is just a replay of Ralph Meyer.
Yeah,
Again,
sorry.
This corner is just not playing ball for him. Let's have a look here. You can see how close they all are together, and he does just sort of misjudge the braking. Tries to get out of the way as well, moves to the left to avoid the rear end. But sadly, it wasn't enough. Again, it's just Matthias' rotten spell of luck continues, and it's not really through any fault of his own.
No, not really. It's just, well, the way the cookie crumbles in motorsport, sometimes you can't have them all. And unfortunately, after the most promising start he could have had, really, with second on the grid in the first race, Matthias' season from then has sort of spiralled a little bit. Morgan Butler in the chat, good to see you, mate. I've seen you on Twitch and on YouTube as well. Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing all right. It's been a long time, and yes, our good mate Dan McCauley, well, he's holding off Callum Brandt at the moment, and he's not really lost Simon either, to be fair, has he, Ed? It's 3/4 of a second. It's not a humongous gap, but you've got to think now, Callum and Lewis behind will both want to work together and move forward, like you mentioned before.
They will, but I think for all of them, the best thing to do is just to sit in behind. Of course, Dan McCauley is able to save a bit of fuel in behind Simon as it stands with slipstream, lifting close to get into the braking zones, but can't to do it too much because he knows that Callum Brandt will be right there to pick up the pieces. I think for me, Callum, if he just stays with this pack, he doesn't need to make any moves. We know his car comes really strong towards the end of the race. There's no sense squabbling and maybe dropping back from a chance to fight for the race victory from the end. Just stick with them. If you're in fourth position after the pit stops, but first is only 2 seconds up the road, that'll be perfect for Callum because his car comes alive in those, like you say, last 20 minutes or so.
It really does, yeah. He just needs to stay around their whole sort of situation in this stage of the race and then try and make something of it a bit later. There was a little battle there between Kim Such and the car ahead, which is John Barnes. I was just trying to catch the tail end of that. We go back to this now because I want to see what this gap's like between Dan McCauley and Simon Povey by the end of the straight. Dan is well on his way here to a strong result as long as he keeps this up, but it's a question of how long can he keep this up, because we saw as the stint went on longer and longer at Silverstone, Simon was just able to extend that gap, wasn't he? All of a sudden it's like he just switched on an extra engine in the back of that McLaren and it really disappeared off up the road. But I'll tell you one thing, we really need to keep our eye on Lewis Ward as well. He may be in fourth place here and at the back of this little pack, but it's only fourth place in the race, and Lewis is a master of saving fuel and making the strategy work. He's in the perfect place for that right now as well.
Yeah, I do really think as well that the perfect positions for these two cars, these two Apex Racing Academy drivers, is to have Dan McCauley at the front ahead of Simon Povey and Lewis will right at the back and forth, because then they can essentially set the pace and set the tone for the race.
Yeah.
They can basically manage it collectively together. One manages the front of the train, one manages the back. And with Lewis Ward as well, he's got a championship to think about. Dan McCauley, he's down the order, unfortunately, due to obviously the 25-point deduction from changing car as well. A little bit of unfortunate incidents at the start of the season. So you would imagine he's most likely going to be playing second fiddle, or rather as sort of a wingman, shall we say, to Lewis Ward when it comes to strategy. And to be fair, I think that is the best way to win a championship when you're going up against Simon Povey, who is so quick. You've got to try and use any sort of leverage you can to get the upper hand.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, to be fair, I think Dan has conceded to the fact that Lewis has the potential to go on and win the Drivers' Championship, and the two of them together could definitely win the Teams' Championship. And I think that's on the priority list for Dan, because I think earlier tonight he actually sent me a message and he was saying, are you ready to see Apex back at the top of the Teams' Championship after tonight? So he's definitely confident that they can take the fight to RD Sim Sport. With his strong result at Silverstone, he basically completely erased the 25-point deficit from changing cars. So yeah, he's well up for it, is Dan McCauley, and it's great to see, as we've had a bit of a shimmy around here in the middle of the pack. This is Rob Sharp side by side with Stuart Clark. Gary Toll's in on this as well. There's some great battles going on, isn't there? I've just been skipping through a couple of them. There's a lot of quartets here, and this is why we love Spa, because it keeps these little battle packs together. And look at this, 4 different manufacturers in 4 positions. Lovely to see.
Oh, if you can watch that back again, that's brilliant. That move around the outside from Stuart Clark held his kind of perfect position to retain that top 10 position. Let's have a look at it here. He's actually even going for the overtake, and it was because of that little squabble all around him. He was like, right, all the way around the outside, I'm going to blitz around you. And look at just the way the car gets going. As soon as he puts it on the throttle, it responds beautifully. And now, all of a sudden, Gary Toll's going to be taking advantage of a slightly slower Rob Sharp all the way around the outside. This will be for his 5th position gain in the race so far, if he can pull it off. But onto the brakes, I don't think he's going to have quite the impetus that Porsche does in getting stopped. It's so great. And then there's Mydas Simulations again in the thick of it now, overtaking Mark Johnson. Paul Gosling in the mix as well, with his teammate John Roberts waiting in the wings, and Rob Sutherland as well, just watching all of the action up ahead. But I think you can see he was very careful coming out of Les Combes, wasn't wanting to get involved in any squabbles, and just decides, right, these two are going to be fighting close. There's a chance they're going to make a mistake or have some contact, and I'm just going to sit here and pick up the scraps.
Yeah, definitely. You've just got to be in it to win it, haven't you? You've got to just eye up every single opportunity, every single lap, every single corner. And some of these guys are very good at being patient in the middle of the field and not going too hard. And then, of course, they reap the rewards afterwards. So we've got these 4, and then we've got a bit of a gap back, and then Christopher Smith, Jacob Money, Mike Horder, and Brian Crowles. Then there's 2 and a bit seconds back to Ben Gregory, Stuart Clark, Rob Sharp, and Gary Toll. And then we've got Paul Goffin and Fausto Pinto together. Then the Mydas Simulations train of Mark Johnson, Paul Gosling, John Roberts, and Rob Sutherland. It's brilliant, brilliant stuff to see all through the field. There are constant battles, and we're nearly 15 minutes in.
Brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely wonderful stuff to see. Excellent battle up and down the field. And now you're going to start to think about when are the drivers going to go for their first pit stops? What strategies might they employ? It'll probably be in about another 10 or so minutes time when we'll see them really start to all flood in. But that's going to be weighing on the drivers' minds now. After about 12, 13 minutes, you start to think about the bigger picture. You've had all the intense squabbling for close positions early on. Now you start to settle into your rhythm, settle in with the pack that you're battling with, and think, right, this is where I am now. How can I get higher up at the end of the race? You're not necessarily going to be looking for the moves right away. You're going to be thinking, okay, this is where I am. And just, you've got a picture in your mind. I think that's the best thing. You've got a picture in your mind what the other cars around you are going to be doing, what your best plan is going to be, and what might happen from different scenarios that you might cook up. You might think, right, he's going to come in early, I've got to do this. If he stays out, I go in, and then how is that going to play out? There's so many things you need to think about. And you're still racing with cars this closely. I mean, Rob Sutherland's probably got all of that going on in his head while he's seeing all these cars battling in front and thinking, right, as well, these guys, they might be braking slightly earlier because they're battling together. I need to shift my braking point a couple of feet earlier, a couple of meters earlier. And it's just so much going on that, of course, you can see mistakes. But look at this little move up the inside, John. Oh my word, that was great from John Roberts. He's going to be thinking nothing about his strategy. He's going to be going all out. And to be fair, with a move like that, why not? Brilliant stuff.
Excellent move that by John Roberts. Really gutsy stuff down the inside of Mark. You could see he went over to the right early. He said, look, I'm going to go down there. And then he sort of put the car in the middle of the road. The two of them kissed wing mirrors all the way in, but they made it work. And that's excellent behaviour. Both of them really keeping it tidy, to be honest with you. And then Rob Sutherland tried it as well down the inside of Mark Johnson. Didn't quite work for him. And he is still behind him as they go down the hill. It's still very close between these three, and I feel like Callum Brandt soon might get a little bit impatient here, and he's thinking, right, let me go in front of you, Dan, and I'll try and chase down Simon, and you get a bit of slipstream off me, because all these guys, you know, they get on really well. There's a really good vibe in the Discord, and when everyone all chats together, so they all know that they're going to be trying to work together to beat Simon. Every meme in the Discord is basically, how do we slow down Simon? Rob Sutherland asked if he could put
for the past 2 seasons, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's very true, yeah. Rob Sutherland actually asked earlier if he could put in a late protest to have Simon drive the old layout of Spa if iRacing ever do it. But to be honest, I think even that probably wouldn't keep Simon back. We've got close battle going on here as well. Jacob Money ahead of Brian Crowles and now Mike Horder. These guys all swapping positions, and again 3 different manufacturers, and then they've got the BMW of Christopher Smith ahead, who is actually starting to break away a little bit. Colin Wynn in the chat as well. Duncan Marai, good to see you guys. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. Hope you're enjoying the show. It's a fantastic race so far. We've just hit 15 minutes in, and the top 4, well, they're separated by 1.7 seconds there. This is excellent.
Absolutely top draw stuff, isn't it, that we're seeing on display. But what has really impressed me the most is Callum Brown, how close he's able to follow the wake of Dan McCauley in that middle sector.
Yeah.
Dan can close into Sciapodi, but then drops back a little bit. But for me, when you see Callum Brown, how close he is when they come through Kempis and Stavelo that we saw just earlier on that last lap, he's really, really gutsy, but he doesn't fancy going for the moves. He's just showing, right, I'm close enough. If we get to the end of the race, you know that I'll be here at the end of the race, this distance behind you.
Yeah.
And he's basically saying, what are you going to do about it? And at the moment, there isn't really a lot that Dan can do aside from, well, try and keep up with Simon and hope that that'll be enough.
Well, to be honest, I think Callum's probably sending more of a message by getting really close to the back of him and not going for the move than he would be if he was backing out really obviously all the time. You know, I think it sends more of a message to say, look, I'm happy to sit right on your bumper if it means that we can stay with the guy in front. So I'm intrigued to see how that develops. Paul Gosling right now has got a right old train behind him. John Roberts, Mark Johnston, Rob Sutherland and John Tusting. All of the Aston Martins, the big beefy V8 squadron following on. Bit by bit, they are going to try and chip away at Paul Gosling, but we all know that BMW is very fast in a straight line. Mark Johnson wants to try and sneak one down the inside of John Roberts, as he did to him just a lap ago at the first part of the sort of middle sector as they get to Les Combes. Now, according to the off-tracks on our timing software, which isn't fully accurate to the sim, Simon Povey's got 24 off-tracks, Dan McCauley's got 22, Lewis has got 22, Callum Brandt's got 17. There's a few others with about 20, 22, Brian Crowles and Mike Horder, but no one else really with numbers near that, to be fair. It doesn't spread out much. It's either 12 to 14 and above or less than double digits. So shows you the drivers that know exactly where those limits are and who can push them, doesn't it?
I think as well, a lot of the off-track logic done by the Simon also that's taken from SDK is using the old off-track system. Obviously, they've been revamped in the past year or so, so they're a lot more lenient than they were before. I think that was something we touched on earlier in the broadcast as well. The track's a lot more forgiving now compared to how it used to be. So it puts it in perspective. If the drivers were using the circuit, say, a year and a half ago, that's how many off-tracks they would have at this point. It's just come up now to 27 for Simon Povey, so I'm not sure if that is actually accurate or not, but it does put it into perspective just how harsh it was and how a little bit more driver friendly it is at the moment. But like you were saying earlier about the message that Dan McCauley's been receiving from Callum Brandt, again, just look at how close now Lewis Ward is to Callum. So the message has been sent by Callum, but it's also having to be received by Callum from Lewis. So it's going to be one of those sort of cagey moments where all the drivers, they're playing happy families for now, but you know, like it is in families, all it takes is for one little thing and all of a sudden they'll start to squabble.
Oh, aye, absolutely. It can only take one quick moment and then it's all gone to pot. This is Matthias Tem fighting with Fausto Pinto. Fausto's on the inside from Malmedy. Matthias tries to carry it around the outside and does so and gets in front. Lovely move. Great persistence there from Matthias Tem. Colin Wynn asking if there is an incident limit set. There is indeed, Sunshine. They get 20 incidents and then they get a drive-through penalty, 30 incidents, and they get disqualified on the spot. It's a bit lenient, but we know that it's a long race. You know, it's easy for things to go wrong. John Tusting has had a moment with Rob Sutherland here. And, a bit of netcode involved, and Rob goes around. And to be fair, John went very wide on the way into the chicane, but he still tried to make that second apex. And I don't think Rob expected him to make it, and that's where the contact would have been sort of, let's say, anticipated by the sim, because that's what it's doing, isn't it, basically? When netcode occurs, the sim is anticipating that two cars are going to make contact incorrectly, unfortunately. And in that situation, there was big netcode.
Yeah, as well, you can't really say that John Tusting ran wide at the apex where they made contact because his wheels were on the red and white curb, as we see. Oh, Ryan Penny. Big snap of the ends there.
Well, we got to see his Ken Block tribute now.
Spin. Yeah, good little almost 360 spin, wasn't it? Sliding off into the barrier, just kissing it, but he gets away with it. No damage really done. As Simon Povey comes into the bits early on, doesn't want to be given any slipstream to the cars around him, but crucially, this is going to put him in traffic, and that could slow him down more towards the end of the race, and where I'll come out to later on. This was what undid the race for Lewis Ward. Will it do the same for Simon Povey?
It's going to be exciting to find out. We go back to another quartet here as we've got Stuart Clark, Ben Gregory, Gary Toll and Rob Sharp all together. Simon Povey hasn't got moving from the pits yet. We'll keep riding him as... Oh, no. Ben Gregory lights up the Aston Martin. And that's how easy it is to do, though, around La Source. It does get bunched up, doesn't it? You get on the throttle, the car's still decompressing slightly. And, well...
Tricky corner as well, especially La Source, because in the Aston Martin, for certain, you take it in second gear, but almost immediately you're shifting up into third, and sometimes that can unsettle the car as well if you just overheat it, or sometimes get a bit of wheel spin as you're then shifting gears. That can really just upset the car, upset the traction control, and then you find yourself spinning around. And unfortunately, I think that was what happened there to Ben Gregory.
Yeah, just stepped on it a little bit too much, it seems, and the car didn't really give him any warning. And look at this, how close these three are together there. It was terrifying as they went through Brousset. Really close. And Lewis Ward seems to have backed off a little bit from the two ahead now, as Callum Brandt sitting right on the coattails of Dan McCauley for the temporary race lead. It will be a two-stopper, Colin. Usually is in these ones. We have a 40% fuel limit in this championship, and it's kept things very interesting from day one. We get drivers having shorter fuel stints and all sorts than others. We have drivers going long stint early on and then have a splash and dash at the end, and traffic has been an issue. Traffic's been a very big part of a lot of the races in this championship since it started, and it's really good.
Speaking of traffic, where is Simon?
He's 4 seconds behind John Tusting and 4 seconds ahead of Rob Sutherland. So it's not too bad, really, is it?
Not the worst, but that will start to, add up. It'll overtake the outside back. Even if the cars get out of the way, it will be a little bit slower. Dan McCauley comes into the pits, as does Lewis Ward. So Pits Race Academy both singing from the same hymn sheet, it appears, in terms of their strategy. But is it the winning one? That's the real question. But from my money, that looks like a response to Simon Povey rather than maybe a plan that they had all on their own. But of course, that's what you can do as race leader, is essentially force other drivers around you into pit stops, into different strategies. So intriguing little moment of the race, and one that could be pivotal.
Got a few other drivers coming in. Brian Crowles, Gary Toll, Matthias Tem all into the pits as well. Simon Povey is just coming across the line there on the right hand side of your shot behind John Tusting, heading into La Source, and Dan McCauley and Lewis Ward are both getting going. Dan McCauley was stationary for half a second less than Simon Povey. Lewis Ward was stationary for an entire second less, and he's just going to slot out in front of them. Literally a car length as they come out of the pit lane, and he's only got a couple of tenths of a second over them, and it's all reset after the first set of pit stops for the race lead. But now, what is traffic going to do to affect this, whether it be a good thing for slipstream or whether it be down to who gets slowed down by what essentially are back markers at this point?
Yeah, now we can see John Tusting might be in the way slightly for Dan McCauley and Lewis Ward. Is this going to break essentially what we call the tow, the slipstream? And it could do, Let's look at this now. In towards the corners. It's the little look up the inside from Dan McCauley through Les Combes. And that's really going to slow up the Scotsman as they break now down into the long right-hander. The one thing that the 98 needs to do is just not get involved, and I think he gets out of the way just about enough. Gap now 1.5 seconds. Is that enough for Dan McCauley to claw back against Simon Povey, or is that going to be a huge moment of this race where Simon's able to break the toe and streak away?
Well, that is a pivotal moment indeed, but at the end of the day, every single right there for John Tusting to fight that. That was not a
Hang on, Chaz. I've just seen Callum Brandt with those purple sectors. This could be a really big moment for him, because he's got to come in, I think, sooner rather than later. I don't know if he's been told, I don't know if he has a teammate spotting for him, but those Apex Academy guys did get held up, and now this is a chance for him to really capitalised. What an in-lap that was from Callum Brandt with 2 purple sectors. This is one that we're really going to have to keep our eyes out for.
It absolutely is. Nicely spotted, Ed. He was flying just then as, oh no, Rob Sharp's going to be flying off the road. He tried to close off the gap where Stuart Clark was, and I think Stuart didn't really have the chance to move over to the right-hand side of the road and get out of the way. Rob smacks the throttle down, gets into the pits. It's such a gorgeous car, the Orris Sapphire Simsport Porsche. And he's now in the pits after losing a place to Paul Goffin and then Fausto Pinto. Where is Callum in this then? Here he is, stationary in the pits. Simon Povey is on his way through. Callum's getting rolling already. That's earlier than when the Apex cars got moving for sure. This, I think, could give Callum Brandt the lead. He's gone. Callum's absolutely... he's just gone. Callum's disappeared down the road. What a belter. Wow. So Simon's going to get his racing gloves on now if he didn't have them on already, and the Apex guys are going to be shaking their heads. We thought this was going to play to their hands here, Ed. Flipping heck, has it? No.
Yeah, but Callum Brandt did have a slightly shorter pit stop. Came in, was stationary for 17.53 seconds.
Yeah, it was like 5 seconds
Simon
less.
Povey and all of the other, pretty much all of the other McLarens were there for 23 seconds or 22 seconds. Dan McCauley's just given way to Lewis Ward, so he's basically unleashed what we'd say the number 1 driver of this lineup to chase after Simon. That gap is now maybe 3 seconds. Simon had a blistering lap through there, whereas Lewis Ward and then McCauley, I think if they change their tyres, might have had a slower one in terms of trying to heat up the tyres, get the warmth into them. There's Matthias Temp just going for an overtake on Stuart Clark. They will go side by side into the braking zone, but with the inside line going away with number 3, that should be the move nicely made, which it is. And now needs to use this middle sector to good use to try and break away, because that BMW, if it's anywhere close going onto those long straights or long flat out sections, he's going to get eaten up, unfortunately. That Aston Martin is not really the fastest car in a straight line.
It's a big fat rocket, isn't it, that BMW? It's a real cruise missile. So too is Paul Goffin as well. He's gained 2 places in this race at the moment. Gary Toll's gained 4 places. Fausto Pinto's gained 3. He's having a good run. Paul Gosling's gained 3. Some fantastic battles going on all the way through the field as Gary Toll puts his nose down the inside. Goffin doesn't want to give him a single inch of space. And look at this. Rob Sharp says, all right, cheers, boys. I'm going to try and capitalise on this as well. Oh, hits the end of the curb there, does Paul Goffin. I've hit that in an LMP1 car before and ended up flying over the wall. It's a very terrifying bit of road. Rob Sharp, though, well, he's a driver that's right up the order. He's in 4th place in the championship, tied on points with Mike Horder coming into this race, and he's 6 places behind him on the road. And after that incident as well, Rob is going to be itching to move up the order further, and look, already he's hounding Gary Toll. But I'm very excited now to see what Callum Brandt can do over the course of the rest of this race here, Ed. We're going to stick with this battle for a moment because this is hotting up big time now. Rob Sharp, he's certainly, he's fired up.
Purple.
Oh heck, yeah. Oh yeah.
That is a qualifying level time, that from Simon Povey, really quick. So he's basically thrown down the gauntlet and said, right, I've got clear air. He might have fresh tyres as well. We didn't quite see the cars if they went up onto the tracks or not for Simon's pit stop. But regardless, he is really fired up. See that he's been maybe thrown slightly off in terms of the strategy, but knows he has a lot of pace behind him. He's really use that to try and catch up to Callum Brandt. Now, something that's really important as well, like we said with Callum Brandt, he pitted a little bit later, but also took a little bit less fuel. But as well, if they start to battle, that will bring in all of a sudden the Apex Racing Academy guys into the picture, and that hard work done by Simon Povey to break the toe is going to be undone. So it needs to be thought about by Simon. What does he do? When can he come into the pit stops? When's the earliest point he can realistically come in and not lose time battling with Callum and allowing the Apex guys back into the race?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's all to play for. That's one thing that we can be sure of, and it can go any which way as these hour-long races go on. And I think the championship has proven many a time already that, you know, when it comes to endurance racing, it doesn't have to be 3 hours, 6, 12 or 24. You can have a 1 hour race, limit the fuel and give people the options, and it's just so exciting to watch. You know, it doesn't have to be a ridiculously long race, and an hour is a sort of, it's what's considered a sprint race length for GT cars and GT4s and GT3s, so to see it as an endurance race with these pit stops is just great fun, as that's a lovely move by Rob Sharp. Gets a fantastic run out of Speaker's Corner And flipping heck, the chrome paint or chrome vinyl or whatever he's painted that thing in really makes that Porsche slippery. It's like a rocket. He's absolutely gone. It looks excellent. I love Rob's car. I love Rob. He's just a great guy. But you can tell now that he is inspired after that earlier incident. You can bet he's going to go flying up behind Stuart Clark in that BMW now, and he's going to try and get one back over on him. He's not going to turn him off the road. That's not what I'm implying. I'm saying he's just going to try and overtake him as quickly as possible and prove to him that he's got the pace to get away.
100% as well, though, Chaz. We've just seen a bit of a response, I think, from Callum Brunt with that second sector. Nearly 3/10 faster than Simon Povey on that last lap. I think the lap times themselves were near enough identical. Both of them in the 28 zeros. So, Simon Povey's basically responded, and then Callum's sort of done so in turn, and basically answered exactly the same in terms of lap time. And this is going to be really intriguing in terms of this fight. You can see there, thank you very much, Chaz, for the track map there, so we can see where they all are. Big gap between second and third now, actually. Simon's really stretching his legs, but Callum's car is starting to come into his own. You can see now as we get to the halfway point, that car looks really nice and strong. I'm not sure about the helmet there on from Callum Brunt. I noticed it at Silverstone and thought about bringing it up, but you can see it there. It's intriguing, to say the least.
I think it's the it's a meme of Mr. Bean's face. I'm pretty sure it's Rowan Atkinson.
Giving it the beans, that's for certain.
He has indeed, mate. It's faster than a green and black Mini with a chair on its roof. Anyway, we've got John Barnes with company here. Fausto Pinto, Ben Gregory, who started 14th in this race and has only lost, he's lost 2 positions from where he started. So he's not really going to be too happy with this at the moment, is Ben. He's usually a guy that's right up there near the front of the pack. As now Fausto Pinto goes past his teammate John Barnes. They remain side by side into Les Combes. There's a gap there for Ben to try and slot into. Fausto's down the inside of John. Ben's then down the inside of Fausto into Malmedy. Staying side by side. They give each other plenty of room. And in the back of this as well, Paul Gosling, the third boosted car, trying to join in. Fausto's going to get absolutely mugged by boosted here if he doesn't play it too carefully, but slots in nicely at Boucher behind Ben. Great stuff. We need to go forward again because we've got another car, another boosted car trying to overtake somebody else, and it's Christopher Smith with Mike Horder in that very distracting bright pink Aston Martin all over the back of him.
I say these two have been racing brilliantly, but I think the pace is more with Mike Horder at the moment. That last lap was around about 4 or so tenths faster from Mike Horder in the Aston Martin, but again, the BMW is so quick in the straight line, even though it doesn't have slipstream, you can see it's a little bit of a struggle. Now as they get into the higher gears, it becomes more significant in terms of the slipstream. A little bit of a lift because you can hear coming into a very tricky Blanchimont corner in these GT4s. But now, Mike, I think he's going to really fancy a move coming into Les Combes. It's going to be, I think, his best chance to overtake and get in front of this BMW. Can as well actually just see third and fourth just making their way into La Source, so they're not miles back from a podium either, actually.
No, they're not at all. They're certainly within striking distance should anything happen ahead of them. And that's the thing I said before, didn't I? You know, you've got to be in it to win it. And a lot of these drivers have got such amazing pace that they're never really out of the picture. It's just that as the race goes on, the field naturally spreads out. Drivers do fall away a little bit. And sometimes they're just not always packed completely together. But one incident from anybody ahead, and it's an instant freebie because they're still putting in solid lap times. I'm loving this little boosted takeover in this battle here, by the way. We've got John Barnes from Boosted Motorsport B. This is his teammate Paul Gosling. They're bookending this little quartet. Then they've got Boosted SimSport Ben Gregory in the middle, and Fausto Pinto, bless him, for Scalant Pro Driving. All on his own this season. He doesn't have João Estevez with him. That's the loudest curb in the world, I think, that one, as they make their way up Eau Rouge. But unfortunately, Fausto finds himself a little bit too boosted for his own good right now.
Yeah, a little bit too much as well. Fausto Pinto and Ben Gregory, they had their own little moment, didn't they, last time out? But it was good to see that they were still happy to battle nice and closely together. No sense of fear or trepidation from either one of them.
Yeah.
They know that they're all a good pair of racers here. They're not going to do anything untoward. And it was a lovely little move, wasn't it, as they all came through Les Combes and Malmedy, and then, of course, down here into Rousset. I think, for me, Ben Gregory is the quicker of these boosted cars. Had that little spin like we saw earlier on this race out of La Source, which is why he's down the order, unfortunately. But I think if I was John Barnes, I'd probably give way to Ben and then just think, right, that's going to pull me along and keep me maybe away from a rather big Mark Johnson, who's chasing down in behind John Roberts, who sees all his boosted mates up there having a bit of fun together and says, oh, can you help me out there? I've got a really angry Aston Martin behind me as well.
Yeah, that's it. He's going to be trying to cling on to the rest of the field. Colin Wynn saying there's some cracking liveries, guys, and I absolutely agree, Colin. We're very lucky to have such a beautiful grid this season. Here are some of my favourites as well battling together. Jacob Money in the Orris Sapphire Simsport Porsche, and then Brian Crowles in the Track Velocity Racing Wins Mercedes as he throws it down the inside. Lovely move by Brian late on the brakes. He loves a dive on the brake, does Brian. As now Jacob's going to try and outdo him on the exit in the squirty little Porsche, side by side on the exit, and all the way down towards La Source. They're going to be side by side. Look how much wider the Mercedes is than the Porsche. It's such a skinny little car when you see it next to the Merc, but it's actually quite a beefy little GT4 car, is that Porsche. I love them. The back end of it especially looks great. But right now Jacob Money tucks in behind Brian. He's going to get the slipstream all the way down, and you can bet that he's going to have a go at the end of the Kemmel Straight into... what's it called again? Lake Com. I nearly called it La Source. There we go, up the hill once again.
Curve off.
It is so loud, isn't it?
Deafens you. I don't know what's up with that. It's so deafeningly loud, but here we go. Jacob Money, he did describe this Porsche, I think, in the perfect way. It's a squat little thing, a pocket rocket, making its way down the Kemmel Straight. But you can see that the top end speed is in the favour of the Mercedes. So they, even though there was a bit of slipstream for Jacob Money, as they got to the top end of the gears there, the Mercedes was starting to pull away just a touch actually, and was able to stay ahead on account of that extra bit of top speed. So like you say, the well, it might be a little bit of a squirty thing. It's only in sort of the lower gears. When it gets up to the higher range, it doesn't quite have the grunt. Yeah, like you say, it's just squirt but not a grunt.
Yeah, it's not got the big V8 pull at the top end, has it? It's got that high revving flat six that just runs out of puff when it gets to the top end. Simon Povey now, by the way, really is on a mission. 2:28.0 last time. He was 0.6 faster than Dan McCauley on that previous lap. And he's now 5.3 seconds clear of the Apex cars behind him. It's similar to what he did at Silverstone this. After the first stop, once he gets back into a rhythm, he just cracks on with it and disappears up the road. It's very impressive. But Callum Brandt, he's not that much slower than Simon right now. It was 0.4 of a second last time round, and he's still 2.7 seconds clear with only 22 minutes of this race left to go. So as long as Callum has a decent middle stint and stays in front of Simon without any mistakes here and has a decent final stop, I think Callum could definitely get this one won, you know, because we know how strong that Mercedes is come the end of the race.
Yeah, I'm just worried though about that final pit stop, because it's likely to be about 5 seconds or so slower than Simon Povey's. He's basically had a 5 second shorter stop at the start, so by law of averages that should balance out and basically mean that his final stop will be 5 seconds longer. But like you say, he'll definitely be in with a shot of a second place, and depending on how quick he is in that final stint, if he's able to take some time out of Simon, who knows what the end of this race is going to look like. As we see again, Stuart Clark in the Rusty's Roast Racing BMW against Rob Sharp, who's Chaz have all been battling along for pretty much the whole race. Good to see Paul Goffin up there in the mix as well. He's currently up in 13th place, and by Gary Toll, if these cars start to squabble, he'll find himself in the midst of this battle as well.
He certainly will. Gary's now only 0.4 behind Rob Sharp and Stuart Clark, so he's going to hopefully, for his sake anyway, use the top speed of that McLaren. He started 16th on the grid, did Gary. I said he was going to move forward, and he certainly has. Mike Horder and Brian Crowles, by the way, in 6th and 7th. They've both gained 3 places from when this race started as well, so they've made strong progress through the top 10. Christopher Smith started 7th, he's up to 5th. The biggest mover in the field, actually, at the moment, is Gary Toll. Only 4 places gained. It's better than none, of course, but we usually get drivers that have gained maybe 10, 11 to even 15 places sometimes in these races, and there's not actually been anybody that's stormed through the order that much. Ryan Penny's doing his usual decent race where he's gained 3 spots. He's under pressure from Heinz Mayer, though. I think we ought to stick with this and see how this sorts itself out, because these guys always have a laugh. Heinz Mayer and Ralph Mayer were basically sandwiching Ryan Penny all of last season, and he's never got one of them out of sight, has he?
No, not at all, but again, you can see Ryan Penny under pressure from Heinz Mayer. Make their way down the Kemmel Straight. So those Lemons Mercedes with the Ada slipstream is a very quick car in a straight line. Will it be enough under the brakes? No, it won't. Ryan Penny will hold on for a little bit more.
I'm afraid there's been an issue.
Cars. Oh dear, what's happened up here? Peter Brill. Oh, just running slightly wide through campus. It's, oh, I was going to say hits the wall, but it does very well to get it stopped. Hopefully, you can see he stays clear of the racing line. Turn the car around and get going. Oh, and another spin. Has to wait now for cars to go past. I think that was race leaders as well. Callum Brandt and then Simon Povey.
Yeah.
Going through. There we go. Close back as well. I've had a look, Chaz, and I think every single lap here, someone's overtaken somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think you've had a single lap where there hasn't been an overtake somewhere in the field.
Oh, yeah, it's been absolutely mega, and that's the thing. Colin Wynn's just reinforced that as well. He says it's cracking racing if only 4 places gained is the highest, and it's absolutely true. As oh no, Rob Sharp's been hitting the rear again for the second time this race. Gary Toll pile drives into the rear of that Porsche. I need to make sure he's not got something written on the back of it that offends them all or goads them into doing it. But luckily, the engine in the Porsche, not right at the back of the car like it is in the 911. It's a mid-engined car, effectively, is the 718 Cayman. But again, Rob Sharp now finds himself behind Stuart Clark and has to do all that work again. As, oh no, the back end gives way. I hope it's not damaged to the point where it's affecting the rear. But Gary Toll will be very apologetic for that one. It's easy to do, though, isn't it, into their head? I think we've all done it at least twice.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of, obviously, with that moment, he did slide the rears and that got heat into the tyres. I don't think it's anything to do with damage. I think it's mainly just down to the heat into the tyres on account of the little touch he got from the rear end.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something that will be too terminal for his hopes in this race. But I tell you what, it's one that I think he'll be really, unfortunately, always bracing himself for now every single time he goes into the bus stop. It's happened, well, 2 times this race. Unfortunately, I think 2 times too many. I think he'll be the first to tell you. But looking up towards the front of the field as well, Callum Brandt and Simon Povey matching each other at 4 lap times. As I say that, Callum Brandt, who we've just seen now coming through into sector 4 and 5. Sector 3 was, well, 2.5 tenths faster for this man. So really, really strong effort from Callum Brandt to try and break away, or rather stay ahead of Simon Povey.
Great stuff so far. Really enjoyable to watch. There's been a moment between Mark Johnson and John Roberts. I think these two are fighting very hard indeed. Let's have a quick look at what's happened. It's down into Bruchet. John's on the inside and then into Speaker's Corner. Still side by side. Oh, John just doesn't have the room to turn in there, unfortunately. Gives him a flash of the lights for the sake of it, I think. Wasn't anything too untoward, and both of them have come in at the same time now, Ed. So here we go. We're going to watch this. Apologies if you want to see anyone else. There goes the 222 with Heinz Mayer out of the pits. There goes Lewis Ward on the right and Dan McCauley behind him. Callum Brandt and the black Mercedes will come to a stop first, and then Simon Povey will come to a stop as well. Let's keep our eye on the pit stop times, shall we, Ed? It's the Spontex CDM Esports car against the RD SimSport machine. No car other than a McLaren has won a race this season. 2 wins for Lewis Ward, 2 wins for Simon Povey, and this is the last race in the first half of the season. And Callum Brandt gets going, although a little bit hesitantly, and Simon is right there with him.
So here we go then. This is basically going to be a showdown until the end. They're both within slipstreaming range of one another. A few cars up the road as well. That's Jacob Money and Brian Crowells who've been battling away. They're not likely to want to get out of the way in a hurry because they could lose out on track positions. They don't need to get out of the way. There's no blue flags in place. They are still technically fighting for on-track positions. Now Callum Brandt has 1.8 tenths of a second as they come into the braking zone at the end of the Camel Straight. If he's able to hang on to this, that'll be a big advantage because that's outside of the range where Simon Povey will be gaining time in the slipstream. And of course, with Callum Brandt and the way his Mercedes handles it after coming out of the pits and after coming through. But actually, no, Simon Povey suddenly closed it way, way down. It's now 1 second.
Yeah, he's
and
right
it
with him.
changes a lot. I think it's the area of the circuit. I think that doesn't quite like the relatives, but I think it's starting to settle around about a second here, Chaz.
Yeah, between a second and 1.1, so it's certainly the battle is on if Simon can keep it around that sort of gap, because then he can potentially sit behind Callum right to the end, and we're into the last 15 minutes or so of this race. It's very scary indeed, but ahead.
Scary moments up in front. Yeah, I think there was the flash of the lights because Jacob Money and
it's
all these
Peter
guys were
Brill.
battling away. Peter Brill, you see. Solo cars back markers getting involved in the mix of the battles. People gets out of the way nicely of Mercedes, but now needs to be careful of the McLaren. It's closing in. Like to get through before Campus, but won't be the case for Simon, and that's going to lose him time. Same through Stavolo, he can't just vanish. Simon's going to look all the way around that. Oh, he does vanish.
Simon, I mean, you could tell that Simon was not messing about there. No. He did not want to wait for that at all, did he? He did not want to wait a moment. He's like, right, stuff it. If you're going to... I imagine he probably expected Peter to move over to the right-hand side of the circuit. I think I did, but Simon just thought, no, I'm going to make you do it. Sorry, mate. He'll be apologetic about it later, but he really had to do that, to be honest. Christopher Smith and Mike Horde are still continuing their battle into the pits. Something's happened, and Jacob Money is around. Looks like there was another car went off as well, wasn't there?
Might have been. I don't know if Callum Brandt's kept going. Simon Povey's still moving as well. Let's have a look, and it was just a checkup. It was more of a checkup than anything else, really. Callum Brandt.
Well, he hit the back of the Porsche very hard, to be honest with you, because there was a checkup in front. Jacob Money hit the back of, was it Brian Crowell's? And then Callum hit that Porsche really hard, and I'd be surprised if there wasn't any further damage. Simon Povey did go straight on at the last chicane as well to avoid all that shenanigans. He sort of outdid himself. But I'm worried now for Callum that Mercedes has got big damage to that front right corner.
Have a look. I can't see from my end. I'm not seeing any damage. I'm not sure if it's showing up on your sim, but for me, the car looks kind of unblemished, to be honest with you. So I think Callum may have gotten away with it. I'll have a look from here. A little bit on the wheel arch, but nothing too significant. So I think, by the looks of things, he may be fortunate enough to get away with it. But of course, that's lost him time more than anything else, and that is going to be a huge ask now for Callum to hang on and hold off Simon Povey for 13 minutes. Let's not forget, Simon is the quickest over one lap by some margin if we look at the qualifying statistics. Held on by well over 0.3 of a second to the next closest car, which is a big margin. And that's going to be one that I think is going to be in Callum Brandt's mind, is the fact that Simon's quick over one lap, but in the race, and he knows at the end of the race as well, especially, that Mercedes is a stronger car.
Yeah, absolutely is. So I'm intrigued to see how he can make it work and what he can get out of it at the end. It's interesting to see as well so many drivers further down the order because of the way the pit stops are working at the moment. Jacob Money down in 15th, Mydas Simulations down in 16th. Now these are both drivers that were inside the top 5 for most of the first round of the championship at Road Atlanta. So they're going to be hoping that when the pit stops do sort themselves out, they gain a big bunch of positions from it. Mydas Simulations looking very confident out of double gauche and not able to get past Jacob Money there, although he does go down the inside of the second part of the Fagnes chicane. Very feisty stuff from Mydas Simulations, but we've learned by now that's what he's like. He loves a good scrap like that. Round the outside into Campus, nearly rubbing doors with each other. There's nearly more contact on the exit as well. Through Stavolo, the right-hander, and Jacob Money somehow holds on. Now Dan McCauley and Lewis Ward are both in the pits. Look at the way they've angled the cars as well to save whatever thousandths they can on the exit. But already Callum Brandt and Simon Povey have gone by, and those two are going to be clear onto the final few minutes of the race. Now 11 3/4 minutes to go. Lewis Ward has got 1.6 seconds over Dan McCauley. They're still not having a bad race by any stretch of the imagination, our Apex Racing Academy, but I think with how the situation was before the first stop said, they'll be a bit gutted if they don't end up winning this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tricky, of course, when they were in good positions at the start. They had one car in second, another in fourth, very close to the leader, and they were maybe thinking about trying to set the pace. But then that early pit stop from Simon Povey basically completely negated any sort of strategy they could create in that longer, what tends to be a longer first stint for the race that sets the tone. I think Simon was probably aware of that fact, came in earlier to disrupt them and thought, right, if I could just battle one car, that makes it easier for me. But that one car is one that's so quick at the end of the race, it becomes a lot harder for him to properly go at it. So we'll have a watch of the lap times from Callum Brandt and Simon Povey. Again, gap now 0.6 of a second between first and second, ever so close. If they start to battle and squabble, you know that those Apex Racing Academy cars, they won't be too far back. About 4 seconds or so between Lewis and Simon. And I mean, if these two do start to battle, Callum and Simon, that gap can easily vanish in the space of 2 laps.
Yeah, I think if Simon is going to get closer and closer and think about making a move, he needs to calculate this, spend a lap or 2 behind Callum, figure out where he's quicker than him, if he is definitely in a very obvious way quicker in a certain part of the circuit. Just to update you, by the way, on the off-track situation, we've got drivers over 30, 40 and even 60 incident points according to our system now. Lewis Ward has 72 off tracks, although I must say John Roberts clearly isn't pushing the track limits because he's apparently got 5. So that puts it into perspective for you. Andy Marston's got 6, and then the next one up I can see is probably about 14, 18. So yeah, hats off.
Yeah, I think mine is like different to yours, so I don't know where it's pulling these from because mine are different to yours. I've got Kim Such, I think, on 8, Andy Marston on 7. For me, the one who's got the most is it's Lewis Ward with 82. That's just ticked up to now.
Oh, I've got 73 on mine for some reason, but still, we know it's a lot. But
yeah.
they're not the actual incidents that the sim picks up. As Ed explained earlier, that has changed since the update to the track limits here at Spa. And popping out from behind the wall is Stuart Clark in the gorgeous Rusty's Roast Racing BMW. John Roberts will be coming into the pits as well shortly. We've still got a few drivers, as you see on the left of your screen there, that need to complete their final stops. John Tusting will be in a minute as well, and then everyone will be filtered through. And we're into the last 9 minutes of the race now, Ed. And here comes Simon Povey on the right-hand side of Callum Brandt. He's wasting no time at all in going for this. Side by side down the Kemmel straight towards Les Combes. And it's going to be the Spontex CDM Esports McLaren down the inside into the first part of the chicane, who's going to take the lead. Callum has to slam on the brakes not to go into the back of him. Simon taking that compromise line through there. Now, what is that Mercedes going to have in the slipstream over the next few laps, though? That is going to be the question. We saw earlier the McLarens were able to stay with Simon, but not get past him or completely overdo it. And to be honest with you, I think Callum right now, he's probably got the pace to overtake Simon, given some slipstream.
I think as well, the Mercedes is so strong through that final sort of area of this middle sector, going in towards the Fagny chicanes through Campus and Stavelot. That Mercedes is so strong, and there's a strong hit from a Mercedes into a Porsche. Again, the Porsches just aren't really catching any brakes into there, it seems. Unfortunately, now it's Drew Fletcher with, the hundreds of thousands and maybe 100,000 dents in the back of his car after that. Unfortunately, you can see now Simon Povey, he's not been able to build any sort of margin to Callum, and it is that final bit of that middle sector that Callum can close up. It's going to be all important now on the run through in towards Blanchimont. And the bus stop now. Is Callum going to go for the move into the bus stop, or will he think about maybe battling it through Les Combes?
Yeah, 7.5 minutes on the clock now here at Spa in the 5th round of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Chaz, Draycott and Ed May in the commentary box for you. Thanks also to all of our sponsors for this wonderful championship. The Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge is sponsored by Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Blind to Go and Mydas Simulations. We're grateful for each and every one of them. I'll tell you something about each of them right now, but I've forgotten to do it up to this point, and now it's going to get too exciting. But a massive thanks to our sponsors and partners of the series and everyone involved, because this is excellent fun, and these two right now are providing us with mega entertainment. The gap is 3.8 seconds back to Lewis Ward now, though, Ed, so it's gradually going down, but they've only had a little inkling of a battle between these two.
Let's have a look. That last lap, it was about 8/10 that Simon Povey and Callum Brandt lost to Lewis Ward, if my maths is right. That is a huge amount of time to lose, and if they do it for the next, few laps or so, there's working about 3 more laps to go, he could be right on the back of them coming into that final lap. But by the looks of things, Simon Povey's been able to stretch his legs a little bit more and won't be under any sort of threat coming in towards Les Combes. But how much of that is down to Callum Brandt maybe backing off and luring Simon into what could be a false sense of security?
Yeah, it's very true, actually. It would be an absolute power play by Callum to just think, right, I know I can probably get him into the final chicane at the very end of the race. I know I can slipstream him all the way up through Blanchimont, get right behind, and then go for a dive. We know that Callum is really good on the brakes. He loves sending it up the inside, and I don't think that he will be scared of doing that at all if it comes to the final couple of corners. But it's car 1P1 again here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. 2 wins so far and 3 podiums for Simon Povey, 2 wins and 4 podiums for Lewis Ward. The gap between them in the championship is 20 points. And if the race finishes as it is right now, all Simon would gain on Lewis would be 5 of those points. You get 25 points for a win, 22 for second, and 20 for third. And then it's 18, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, and so on, down to 20th position. So you get points all the way down, and there's not many points really, sorry, not many positions, Ed, that are separated by more than just 1 point. So it keeps it nice and close, doesn't it? It's something I'm going to rave about right to the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, nice and close championship standings, and also nice and close racing out on the circuit. You can see Gary Tall battling away with Paul Goffin. Both these two have had great races. Actually, Paul Gosling as well as driver we've got a shout out, who's gained the most positions so far this race. The Boosted Motorsport B driver gaining 6 positions from the start of the race up into 14th place. Size 10 as well. Not too bad showing from him, going back through the order after being down. I think 16th position after an early moment, a bit of contact that wasn't really anything to do with him, just the car broke itself, came into the back of him, spinning down the order. Great battle to get back up the order into 8th place. But now our focus, as it does get towards the end of the race, shift towards the top of the field. Simon Povey and Callum Brandt now making their way up through Eau Rouge, rest at Radion, and then Kemmel straight to follow. How much can Callum Brandt gain going down in towards Le Coulme?
I'm just looking at the championship standings, by the way, and looking back at the points. There's an interesting theme, actually, because Simon won the first round of the championship from pole. Lewis then won the second round of the championship from pole. But then in races 3 and 4, they've both finished in second position from pole. So there's some weird symmetry going on there. They're not going to finish in third place from pole in this one, are they? I.e. Simon. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But it seems like he's opened the gap up a little bit now to Callum Brandt. Half a second with 3 minutes and 28 seconds left to go. And I'd argue that is going to be just one more lap here at Spa, because they're only just coming down to Double Gauche now. I realise I've been calling it Double Gauche, but it's Double Gauche, very correctly mentioned by Ed. It's hard to judge, isn't it? Because, like you say, Callum's really strong in a certain part of the circuit, and he's got the slipstream to help him. But right now, he's not tucked right up behind Simon like he was a lap or so ago. Is this that false sense of security that you mentioned?
Because you can see how much he closes down now coming into the French chicanes. But yeah, as you mentioned, Double Gauche, I just thought, oh, my French teacher, my GCSE French is coming in proud. My teacher will be very proud of me. My C grade getting its good usage. Love it. No worries. And then we can see Callum Brandt now. It can close up in towards that sort of latter part of the lap. And then the slipstream does gain a lot. And I think what it ideally needs to be is around 2 or 3 tenths coming out of Stavrolo to really be with the chance of properly attacking into the bus stop at the end of the race. And it will be in the race very shortly, because you can see now the clock has ticked down towards 2 minutes. It's a 2-minute 28 lap time, so this will be the final lap. You can see there a flag being waved by Barney. They're ready to go.
Final lap then here in the 5th round of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Fastest lap of the race by Simon Povey, and Callum Brandt only 400ths off him. So these boys are pushing super hard right now. They're going for it, and this is surely going to be the moment where Callum tries the move. Or is it? Because he knows he's got the pace in that middle sector over Simon, so he can open up the gap and not have to worry about the slipstream. They've gapped the 2 Apex cars behind by about half a second each on that previous lap. They are flying right now, are our 2 race leaders. Only a McLaren has won a race so far this season. Simon Povey's done it twice. Lewis Ward's done it twice. Callum Brandt has been on the podium in 3 out of 4 races so far. He wants to go to the top step, but look at that, Simon weaving down the straight. Only does a subtle weave, let's say. It's still a bit more than I'd probably like, but still, he doesn't really overdo it. And Callum Brandt is tucked right up behind him now. Look at the mid-corner speed of this Mercedes, Ed. You've got it absolutely nailed there, son. He knows how to work this car around here.
This is absolutely edgy of seat stuff. You can see that Callum's car is really quick. It's got the rotation through the curves.
Oh.
Simon's starting to struggle just a touch. I don't know if it is the false sense of security. Maybe now that he's getting the pressure piled on, this could be working against him. This is the first time I've seen Simon Povey properly scared of a car behind. And you know what? That could play into Callum's hands. A real treat now in towards Double Gauche for the final time in anger of this race. And look at the speed that's being carried here. He could make the move down into the failure chicane, but he doesn't want to. He wants to wait before the time really comes to him in towards the bus stop.
Oh.
He's going to go all the way around the outside. Is he going to have
Unbelievable.
the inside line for the left-hander? He's going to properly fight for it. They go side by side, and then they're going to continue side by side now in towards Campus and Stavolo. Simon Povey has to go tight, and that could compromise his line out of the corner. A little bit of a helping hand, though. That bit of extra speed from the bump might work in his favour, because now the gap is 4/10.
Unbelievable racing, so close. Callum Brandt had to go for it though. He really had to push and try his very best down there. He could not leave anything on the table, and I'm not sure if he is going to be close enough. Simon Povey leads it. He had to be really hard on the way into Campus, and he didn't leave much room at all, but it was only just enough to make it work. And with 1 corner to go, Simon Povey stamps on the brakes into the bus stop chicane. Callum Brandt tries to go as late as he dares. 1 more corner to go. Simon just needs to keep it tidy, and it's going to be another win. His 3rd of the season for Simon Povey in Spontex CDM Esports. Amazing race by both of those guys at the end. Great battle, and one for the ages there. Lewis Ward gets another podium. Dan McCauley's going to finish 4th. And what about this? For the final spot in the top 5, Christopher Smith in the BMW, 2 places gained. Mike Horder in the Aston Martin, 3 places gained. Both trying to hold on for dear life. I think Christopher's just going to do it, Ed.
Yeah, he's just about, but those two would change positions all the way on that final lap as well, so hopefully we can see a little bit of it. But that was great stuff there from Christopher Smith. He's finally had a race where he hasn't had to do a recovery drive, and it's one that sees him bag a really great 5th place finish. Stunning drive there from the BMW RD Simsport entrant. And now we've got the other BMW, Stuart Clark for Rusty's Rose Racing, in the thick of it, coming out to round out the top 10. Lovely little battle there was as well with Team himself and Rob Sharp that went on for pretty much the entire race.
Gary Tall went into the pits at the very end of the race, so I'm not quite sure what that was for. Maybe some sort of penalty or something. We've got more Aston Martins having a civil war here. Rob Sutherland down the inside of John Barnes, and he was just defending that position, in fact, and that means he gets 2 championship points, and John Barnes is the last points scorer in this race. But my oh my, that was an amazing battle near the end there. Really good entertainment between Simon Povey and Callum Brandt, and you know what, hats off to them, because that could have been a real mess there. One of them could have overdone it, and that was just epic to watch. Absolutely epic. Really do appreciate that solid racing. Callum was pushing so hard, you know, he gave Simon a little tap at Bruchet. Simon tried to close the door as gently as he could on the way into Campus, and they both made it across the line with less than half a second between them. And I mean, that was just joyous to watch. That's exactly why we love this championship, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah, it was all kick-started as well by a brilliant exit out of Melmedy by Callum Brandt that really forced Simon Povey to go defensive in towards Brucey, and then throughout the rest of the lap, Simon was just looking in his rearview mirrors, constantly worried about the attack from behind, and credit to Callum Brandt, he gave it almost everything bar the kitchen sink, and unfortunately it just wasn't enough for him, but still a brilliant effort. And you can see, based on the performance here tonight, there is definitely going to be a race win coming his way in the second half of the season, almost certainly.
Oh yeah, it's like you say, it's almost guaranteed, isn't it? We can have another quick look back at that final lap as well, because it was one of the most entertaining laps I've ever had the chance to call. And, well, you could see Callum at this point was not really the closest that he'd been. White flag
flown. It
flown.
was the source. He really gained a lot through here.
Yeah, he did. He got a great run down the hill as well. Look how smooth he is. Yeah, Simon had to sort of double take it on the brakes, and look at that. Yeah, suddenly he's 1 car length back, and he is all over him. But it's that very important run down Malmedy that you mentioned, down the hill towards Bruchet, to the point where he could just tap Simon's car in the rear, just to unsettle him, let him know that he's there. You know, it wasn't anything dirty. He just sent the signal, didn't he?
That was like a Dale Earnhardt sort of move, isn't it? Where he just sort of like just goes behind, just gives a little bit of a bump in behind, and really just throws the fear of God into the cars in front of him, and just lets them know, I'm here and I'm going to be coming through. And you can just see how close they came now. Into they come. You can see as well just the lines really working. The car seems a lot more responsive for Callum than Simon. Simon's sort of reacting to the car, whereas Callum's more just positioning and doing exactly what he needs to do. And then you can see there, it was all the way down into Brucey. Like you mentioned, this little bump in behind. Not even any contact, but it's just a little, almost all you can see in his rearview mirror is the front end of a Mercedes. And from there on out, you can just see the car is not really at all happy. But that's what, like, Simon Povey can really do well, is get it over the line
Ooh.
when things aren't in their favour.
Can I just highlight this? I hate rewinding on broadcast because it's just not how it is. But just look at how, like, just look at where they turn in. So Simon is like on. Oh. Simon is basically on the curb, and Callum doesn't even have any wheels on it, and he's still able to carry so much more speed through the corner. You'd be able to see if the trees weren't in the way, but he's still able to get the car to turn in. The front end on that Mercedes in the later stages of the race is so much stronger, isn't it? This would have been absolutely glorious if he made this work, though. Around the outside, doesn't leave all the space in the world on the inside either, and neither does Simon in the second part. They really were racing each other hard here, and it was just excellent stuff, but it was just on the limits of what was fair, and they were showing each other, look, I mean business. Another push there into Campus, and it finished that way. But wow, oh wow, Ed, we had been treated to an absolutely joyous race there, and I want to do it all again.
That was absolutely amazing. This is certainly what we said at last time. We said the first race of Spa in the GT4 Challenge last season was forgetful, but this will live long in the memory. What a race we were treated to here tonight. Simon Povey and Callum Brandt, two protagonists, and I tell you what, they are really, really just up in my estimations of... I mean, I was already estimated Simon Povey high, and same with Callum Brandt, but I think they've just gone that extra level here tonight.
They have indeed. A driver that was probably a bit more grateful to go an extra level in terms of his luck tonight instead of being pile-driven off the road all the time was Mydas 10. Mydas wasn't the most straightforward of nights for you, but still, you got some solid championship points out of that one. How did you find it?
Seems to be becoming a signature move, eh? Driving back through the field.
Well, you're good at it, though, to be fair.
It was tough. Like I'm sweating. It's really hot. And yeah, that incident into the bus stop chicane, that was gut wrenching, and I had to drive back through the field again. Had some really good races though with people on track, like really good racing.
Yeah.
Jacob Money and at the start for P5 until it got interrupted. I think we put up a good show, but
oh yeah, no, definitely. There was
No,
so many moments we came back to you and whoever you were battling at the time, and it was always really exciting racing. And that's the thing with Spa; it gives you a lot of opportunities for fast corners, slow corners, long slipstreaming sections. It's got a bit of everything, hasn't it?
it's such a thrilling track to drive and race at, and it always produces good racing. Whatever car, whatever class, it always produces good race. You could go there on a moped and have a good race.
You could go there on foot and have a good race, I think, to be honest, and just be knackered by the time you get to a Rouge. Obviously, halfway through the season now, we've finished the 5th round of the championship. In a week's time, we go to Hockenheim for the Grand Prix circuit there, and it's going to be a full daylight race rather than sort of going into sunset and a bit more of a dark condition. Is that one you're excited for, or is Hockenheim not really a favourite?
I like Hockenheim, but like GT4 is about the quickest cars I drive there. Some of those corners are really tight, and with these cars you can properly race in them. And I know the Aston is pretty handy around, especially in the last sector there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I expect a good race there.
Well, we hope it goes well for you, Matthias. Well done again on your results tonight. Sorry to see the incident, but hopefully we'll see you coming back strong for Hockenheim. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Will do. Yeah, just my team, Fury Simsport, always supporting me and preparing for these events.
Lovely stuff. Great to speak to you, mate. Thanks again for jumping in, and we will see you soon.
All right, thank you, mate. See
Cheers.
ya.
Matthias Tem there from Fury Simsport, and he's absolutely right, really, Ed. I mean, he's had to work through from the back of the field quite a lot so far this season, and we're only 5 races in.
Yeah, I know, it's tricky for him, but I mean, he's, like you said, Chaz, to him earlier, he's very good at doing it. He's obviously, I think, a bit like Christopher Smith. He's probably getting sick and tired to the back of his teeth of those recovery drives coming through. He wants a nice, normal, everything by the book sort of race, but fortunately that isn't necessarily one you can always plan for and always have happen to you every single time. So for now, he's having to endure the choppy waters, but I think later on in the season, we might see a little bit more better fortune, or at least hopefully a bit more better fortune going the way of the Dutchman.
Absolutely, and somebody that we've been hoping for a little bit more better fortune for, so he doesn't have to do a recovery drive for once, is Christopher Smith in that lovely BMW. A top 5, mate. Started just outside of it, but a nice clean race from your perspective. You must be pleased with that one.
Yeah, cleanish. Thank you. Yeah, sorry about what happened with Matthias. It was a bit of a racing incident. I don't know if you saw that on the stream, but
Yeah,
yeah, he got.
I just was.
And also Stuart Clark as well
we
was
saw.
affected.
Sorry, mate. I was going to say, well, yeah, it wasn't the only one, so don't worry. We all know it happens into there. That's the thing. I mean, it's just so quick into that part of the circuit, and people are in the slipstream. People are all moving around because it's a curved braking zone. Essentially, it's just one of those moments, mate. But we appreciate the apology, but it still looked like a belter from where you were.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, pretty calm and collected. I mean, a big thanks to my team for just giving me a few pointers in the practice yesterday to help improve those lap times. I think the way that incident points handling has been changed on Spa, and it's difficult to get out of those old habits, and you're not using all the track as much as you should do, but because of the old incident point system, which was very punishing around here. So yeah, it's good to get a top 5 and some points on the board for the team, and yeah, it was a good race. I enjoyed it. Thanks very much for putting it on.
No problem at all. We've really enjoyed watching it. It was a fantastic one to commentate on and broadcast. Next time round, we're hoping it's going to be another belter as well, because while I don't like Hockenheim itself, I mean, I love the old Hockenheim, I don't like the current Hockenheim itself, but the racing there is always absolutely mega. We had a really good race here last season. Do you expect to go well there in the BMW? Because there's a very long parabolica section before that hairpin.
That's about the only bit the BMW can do well with. So yeah, I mean the straight through a Rouge, I mean nothing could keep up with the BMW. It was, yeah, despite the toe, I don't think maybe the McLaren could have, but the Astons were just struggling to keep up with the BMW. So yeah, even with the toe, it was good. So yeah, it's just the twisty bits that we really struggle with in the BMW. It's just a big heavy car with all the shopping and the kids in the back. So,
well, you've got to remember, you've stripped the indicators out for lightweight, obviously, for weight saving. I got a call off the garage today, and they were saying, "Where are your indicators?" And I thought, well, it's an option I never went for. So, $5,000 extra they are each. It's unreal. But no,
as well, Chris. Actually, sorry, Chaz. But I was just going to ask Chris about that sort of. You were talking about the Aston Martin and the difference between the cars, but how was it like battling with Mike Horder towards the end of the race? Because we saw you chopping and changing a few times at the end. Just were you confident you could bring it over in 5th place in the end, or was it one that you were always thinking, oh, it's a bit touch and go here?
No, definitely not. I was really happy at the end of the second pit stop because he was about 2.4 seconds behind, and I was thinking, sweet, he's out of tow, just punching some laps, but he's obviously quicker than me. And so he managed to claw it back lap by lap, and I was thinking, nah, this isn't going to happen. But fortunately, yeah, the straight line speed and some close but fair racing was the order of the day, and it helped us secure P5. So really happy with that, and good racing with Mike. He's very quick, and yeah, I'm sure I'll be seeing more of him in the future. Maybe the back of his car, not so much the front, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, we look forward to the battles as well, because you guys are always good to watch on track. So it's always a very heartwarming moment to see drivers like yourselves get together and have such a clean fight all the way through. So more of that, please. Before we let you go, though, Chris, is there anyone else you'd like to give just a quick thanks to?
Team RD Simsport, thank you very much for taking me on and supporting me. They actually made a skin for this car for me.
Oh,
they
nice.
were like, really? The BMW? What? So a big thanks for the team and our sponsors, CD Keys. And also apologies again to Matthias. Thanks for you guys. And thanks to my mum and my goldfish and my cat and everybody else.
That's the first time I've ever heard anyone thank their goldfish in an interview, but I'm here for it. Lovely stuff, Chris. Thanks again, mate. And, well, we'll see you at Hockenheim in a week's time, mate.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Look forward to it.
Cheers. What a lovely lad Christopher Smith is, and he's such a feisty
brilliant
racer as well. But this is the thing: you see these really feisty racers, and you think, "Oh, flipping heck, that's that's a bit on the edge." But then you speak to him behind the scenes, and I mean, as Rob Sutherland has described him as the silky voice, and apparently he's throwing his underwear at the screen. It's just he's one of them guys. He's just a really nice bloke, and put them behind the wheel, and they're just they're purposeful, and they crack on with the job at hand, don't they?
Yeah, even thanked his goldfish. I don't think I've ever had someone thank their I think I've had someone thank the spider that was in the corner of their room once, but I've never had someone thank a goldfish before. So he's a lovely lad. Thanks, everyone. And to be fair, he deserves his 5th place. Excellent drive. And another driver that we've just brought in, Chaz, I can see is Dan McCauley, so I'll let you take this one away, mate.
Mr. McCauley, it was, well, I imagine a bit of a frustrating scenario for Apex Racing Academy tonight, but still a strong points finish all the same. But with that early first stint, what was going through your mind with Callum in between the two of you?
It wasn't so much frustrating, it was trying to get... We knew Simon was going to get away, so I was always prepared to sacrifice my race to kind of make it happen. And the aim was catch Simon, use all the tyre I possibly could. If I got to Simon, send it on him to try and make it a bit of a race, because Simon's pace was unbelievable tonight. Then Callum seemed to be a little bit quicker than what he thought. Well, we thought he was going to be, and yeah, I never quite got to Simon, so it didn't quite work out how we wanted it to. So yeah, I kind of ruined my front tyres in the first stint, and it never quite came back. But I was always going to give the points back up to Lewis at the end, because he needs the points more than I do. We just kind of want the team points, and that was an awful lot of effort to finish on the exact same points as what RD Simsport did tonight. So that was a great surprise when we seen that a minute ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it did definitely slip under the radar a bit that Chris had got right up into the top 5, although only gained 2 places doing it. That's been sort of the theme of tonight's race, really. The biggest mover in the field was eventually Paul Gosling with 7 places, but below that, nobody gained more than 3, so there wasn't any sort of pile driver moves going through the order by anybody, but it didn't mean it wasn't an exciting race, though, because no matter what, you always had someone around you, didn't you, really?
I think the grid here seemed to be the most representative we've had so far. Like, we had a practice session last night, quite a lot of people in it, all pretty close. Same with the practice session before the qualifying started, so
yeah,
I wasn't expecting many moves, and I think everyone's sort of pace around Spa, it shows. And yeah, I think everyone's sort of done a mega job. And then it might not have been exciting from a terms of moves, but with Spa's off tracks, trying to keep the thing quick in a straight line without getting disqualified kind of brings the excitement factor in that way.
Yeah, it's a different level of excitement, isn't it, really? It's just one of the ways it works. But I suppose it's one of those races, and I think from one amazing circuit like Spa, we go to one that, as I've just said to Chris a moment ago, I'm not really a massive fan of, Hockenheim. The racing, you and I both know, the racing around there can be absolutely mega, can't it? So are you expecting a good one in these GT4 cars?
I'm expecting to be busy. I think as it's kind of showing, even, you know, Chris getting up there tonight, the top 5 is getting closer and closer and closer. And with mistakes sort of being ironed out and people being where they should be on the grid, and, you know, at the end of lap 3, everyone is where they should be. There's not been any accidents. With a track like Hockenheim, where there's constant draft, constant big braking zones, it's going to bring the Porsches back into it with the braking zones and the fuel saving. The BM will be ridiculous down the straight. And yeah, it's just going to be who can drive the wheels off the thing, right place, right time. I think it's just going to be a big combination of factors and should be some spectacle.
I hope so, mate. And before we let you go, of course, you know by now, is there anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to before you go?
All the guys at Apex, big shout out to Lewis. He didn't do any practice until tonight, so that was pretty impressive. And extremely annoying at the exact same time. So thought I might have been the lead McLaren for once, but nope, Lewis had to take that one again. But no, just big shout out to you guys for broadcasting, all the guys behind the scenes for organising it. Great job.
Thanks very much, Dan. Well, hopefully Hockenheim goes well for you as well. More team championship points and hopefully break that deadlock. We'll have to see. It's a good battle between you guys and RD Simsport as well. But thanks for jumping in, mate, and we'll see you soon.
See you in a bit. Ciao.
Well, there you go, Ed. As you can hear from Dan, frustrated that Lewis doesn't need to do as much practice to have that pace, but still, what a performance that means it was by Lewis. Epic stuff.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's a great drive from the pair of them, though, to be fair, and it still bags them really strong points for their team's championship, which is, I think, the main focus for the pair of them. I definitely think Lewis Ford has probably got one eye on the overall championship, but is aware of the fact that he lost a little bit of ground. The chase impact to Simon Povey and Calibrant as well could be very integral towards the second half of the season. He's in the right position, is Lewis, but of course, there's still a long way to go of the season.
There really is, and it's only now the first half is completed. 5 races gone. we have 5 races, get your words out, Chaz, remaining to go in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge's 2nd season. Hockenheimring in a week's time. A week after that, Red Bull Ring. A week after that, Hungaroring. Guess what? A week after that, Monza, then Catalonia. They're going to be very busy now until the end of the season. So are we, and we hope you'll be busy watching it as well. Thanks once again for jumping in and watching, everybody. I've been Chaz Draycott with the wonderful Ed May alongside me. Simon Povey takes another win for Spontex CDM Esports, with Callum Brandt and Lewis Ward continuing to rack up the podium numbers. Another amazing race here at Spa, and hopefully we'll see you in a week's time. But for now, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you very, very soon.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Warning: the following video contains flashing imagery that may cause discomfort and/or seizures for those with photosensitive epilepsy. Viewer discretion is advised.
Tell me somebody how long he will be on my mind. He will be on my